Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show, we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Lucifer Season 6, Episode 6. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Let's start off with Amenadiel's side of things in this episode, which I thought was kind of really interesting. I think it was actually a really nice progression in his story. It's actually kind of an interesting continuation of, his story has always kind of been a continuation and built off of each other, but I feel like it's definitely very directly connected to his interactions with Caleb in that episode. That story, it's a real nice continuation of that. Because obviously, first and foremost, I love the fact is that Dan had to pop up. It's of course, it's Amenadiel's first day on the job, but also for him, it's yeah, we can work as a duo and stuff like that. He's I know you don't want me to make you look crazy, but he's come on, I had to be here to check you out on your first day, bro. But I love the whole thing of he's all right, I'll leave you alone. I just want to check you out, because I'm sure for him he also misses the rush of kind of, it's he enjoyed being in a police car again and everything. But it's I love you, man. And in a minute they'll be I love, and he looks at Harris, being a cop. But nevertheless, they end up on a crime scene, and maybe when he saw Kevin, the victim in this episode, maybe it made him think about Caleb. I think it's just he's not constantly around, he's been around humans, and so seeing murder firsthand, it's never an easy thing. But obviously you could tell it's taking it, I think it takes its toll on any normal person, and you kind of you deal with death on occasion as an angel, but it's just being there like this, not in the capacity of an angel, but as an investigator, well, not even an investigator, but a police officer processing the scene. So he ends up, breaking it down to Harris, all his, thoughts about everything. He's oh, I think there's two toothbrushes, so it's maybe him and his girlfriend's toothbrush, and kind of throwing out all these theories. And she's right, it's not our job to do that, it's his job. And points, I was oh, is that going to end up being Carol or something? It's no, it ended up being, at first I was who the hell is this cop? And it's oh, and I'm glad they included a flashback, because I would not have recognized him being who he was. But that's where you tie into the Caleb's storyline. I was right. And the way he walks out to Amenadiel, I'm does he not remember? I guess the argument could be you look like every other person I deal with, type of thing. It could be interpreted that way. But obviously Amenadiel has a real chip on his shoulder. He has every right to, considering his last experience with this cop. It's you and that other dude were completely unprofessional asswipes, racist asswipes at that. And so, obviously, he didn't get reprimanded. Somehow, he ended up becoming a detective. But Amenadiel kind of points out, this doesn't seem like a gang, affiliated thing. And he tried to throw out his theory, but, the detective, immediately shuts it down. Oh, who probably came into the window? The Easter Bunny. It's why you have to be a dick about it? Because he's so dismissive, first and foremost, because I think he does remember Amenadiel later on, but I think it's because he did remember Amenadiel. It's oh, look at you, it's cute, playing cop, you're a beat cop, so it's already as a beat cop, you're shown disrespect anyway. Which is so interesting is that you take something like Bosch, for example, which never looks down upon beat cops or anything like that, I don't think. But maybe it's that, but also, I think because of also Amenadiel, being who he is, and, their connection, I think that's why, what's his name, Riven, looks down on, Amenadiel like that in that regard. So, I think it's a lot of contributing factors. But Harris is telling him to keep his head down, don't start anything. But Amenadiel's I know that, dude, we have history. But she's if you do that, it's going to stall your career. You want to kill your career on your first damn day? She's why you think I'm here 10 years on being a beat cop? My career is pretty much dead. Unless you want a long life in this life of career, you shouldn't do this. He actually goes behind both of their backs and gets Ella's help, which I love. Ella's whoa, you want to talk to me? Or she's all right, I'm here for you. And she's in her seat, and then she boosts it all the way up. She's all right, let's talk the real. I'm dude, she's so kidding. Once again, her reaction to this, potentially figuring everything out, is way different than because everyone else had pretty negative reactions to this. To be fair, we haven't seen Ella's first true reactions to it, but this is her early stages to it. We've seen Linda kind of shut down from it. Chloe literally ran away, thought he was evil and everything, and came back to try and send Lucifer back to hell. We saw Dan literally try to kill Lucifer. So it's like, we've just seen the ranges of emotions of how, and I've always figured Ella would probably handle it way differently than anyone, because, like I said, amongst everyone, she's the most religious. So she's like, right, cool, like, you want to talk about, and just like every time, like, oh, you want to talk about something really important? Oh, is it spiritual? And she makes references to wings and stuff. Like, I even love later on when she's hugging him, she's like, because you could come to me about anything. She's hugging him and she's trying to feel his back, and it's like, that would have helped you if you had met Lucifer. Well, I'm trying to remember, yeah, because Lucifer had already cut off his wings by the time she got introduced in the show. But it's like, if you had felt his back, you probably would have been like, oh, he's got scars on his back. Probably would have, but obviously his wings have obviously subsequently grown back since season 3, but still. Well, that was the season 2 finale when they actually grew back. Well, we're back regardless. But I love that. And I wonder, is Amenadel picking up on, like, is she looking for wings? He's probably like, Ella's kind of a weirdo, so that's all that really is. But he actually went to Chloe about an investigation as well, because she ended up finding evidence, like a blood trail outside the window, and it turns out like he has a girlfriend named Michaela Williams, because she was also like, well, he finds that out later, but it's like he was there, and there were fingerprints and stuff like that allocate to her. So it's like, and obviously Chloe's kind of like, yeah, you doing that isn't good, like that. I appreciate the enthusiasm, but it's like you going around your CO like that. But it's like, it's Ryben. She's like, it's him? Wow, he became a detective. She's like, all right, I'll look into it. And it even brings up the fact is Harris didn't get looked over for detective. She chose not to become a detective. So later on, he meets with Miss Loretta, which I love that actress. The thing I always know her from is like the first Jeepers Creepers movie, as well as I think that's the first thing I ever saw her in, and then subsequently being in Bones. I'm blanking on her character's name from Bones, but like the Bones tie-in. I mean, to be fair, there's also like the Fox tie-in, because obviously like the actor was it DB? I always forget. It's like DB Woodside, the actor who plays Amenadel, was obviously on the show 24, which was also on Fox. So like there's like that connection in that regard too. Like I brought it up last episode with like the actor who played her dad also being from 24 as well, because they were like they're father and son in this, but they were brothers in 24. I just think that's funny, like how stuff works out like that. But regardless, the tangent and everything, she's kind of like the quote-unquote nosy neighbor, and it's like, okay, like the fact is a cop's coming around asking her questions, like, no one ever asked her anything about what she knows, and she's the one that filled him in about like, oh, Michaela, like there's no way she could be behind any of this, because they were so in love. And he talks about the sex, and it's like, now she's like, now it's loud enough that it's like, it kind of echoes out. She's like, I know what some good love making sound like. I was like, okay. But Dan being there, and even he was kind of upset about the Ryben thing. He's like, right, I filed the complaint, but I didn't like look into it more. Like a lot of the racism at like work, he's like, I wish, that's one of the regrets he has. It's like, I wish I'd done more about all that stuff. But that's one of his many regrets, like he's had in hell and stuff. And so ultimately, she had no idea where Michaela was, but obviously when he goes in, like, Amenadel wants to tell the lieutenant, but Harris is like, don't do that. Like, who do you think gave Ryben that? Because the whole thing is like, he's got powerful people in his corner, was like the whole conversation that Dan was kind of warning him about. Because it's like, right, if he was able to ignore all those, if those complaints didn't reach him, that means he has someone powerful in his corner. And it's like, for Harris, she admits why. Like, she's like, yes, I turned down being a detective because they were going to send me away from like somewhere in the Palisades to like a cushy job. It's like, no, here as a beat cop, like even if it's just as a beat cop, I can do so much good. I can look after the community, like, because I would have been seen as like a tattletale for the hood, because at least I would have tried to be more involved in those type of situations, so those type of things don't go sideways. And so obviously Amenadel kind of understands where she's coming from, but obviously it's like about wanting things to change. And Ryben's in there being like, right, I've changed, I'm not the same person. I was like, are you? Or are you just gonna like, you're gonna like immediately like shoot yourself in the foot and reveal yourself to be the dick you are? And it turns out that he is, because he's painting Michaela as the assailant. He's like, right, the fingerprints and everything, we couldn't have figured it out without you, Amenadel. But Amenadel's like, it's not going down like that, because he's even trying to use like her history of being related to a gang, like back in like high school. Is like, that was years ago. You can't hold that against her now. And it's just like, he's just so smug about it, because I think the entire time he was just waiting for an opportunity just to stick it to Amenadel, because it was about showing like, oh, I'm the one in charge here, you don't go around me, like you're the like rookie, like this is my house, this is my territory. I remember when you were the kid, not the kid, but the dude we just pulled the guns on, you were just some civvy, now you want to play cop. Like, I think it was just asserting his dominance along with just being a bigoted asshole as well. Racist bigoted asshole, but you get what I'm saying? So, but I think that was just him just abusing his power. And obviously that's the most frustrating thing for Amenadiel, because he wants to do more, because it's like, right, an innocent woman shouldn't be accused of this, but Harris kind of breaks down the fact is of like, yes, I do see what's going on. Don't think like I turn a blind eye to it, because by staying in this position that I am, by staying quiet, I don't raise too many eyebrows, so when I am there, I can call stuff out, I can be there, I can be a witness to stop things. But Amenadiel's like, you can't be everywhere, but she's like, I can at least, you know, it's not about winning, like, you won't win all the battles, but it's about winning the war. But even Amenadiel's like, you can't go at that like alone. Like, once again, you can't be everywhere all at once. So, but for Harris, it's like, this is what I can do. Like, it isn't sadly, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Like, you have whatever victories you can take, you have to like do it little by little. You have to talk to the right people. But for a minute though, it's kind of like, why should you have to? Like, when things are wrong, it should, you know, but that's sadly not how the system is set up. It's not how things kind of work. So they end up meeting the doctor who patched up Michaela and stitched her up, because like the doctor removed the bullet. So got her number from because later on they run the bullet, and it turns out it's connected to like some guy that basically shoots people who owes him money. Now the reason why he killed Kevin is because the dude that had criminal ties, Sam, lived there previously, so it was a mistaken identity thing of like he busted into place and he shot Kevin thinking it was Sam. So Ella kind of pointed them in the right direction, but luckily they were able to show up and help Michaela, who was like, I didn't do it, please, you have to believe me. It's just like, you know, she kind of runs through everything, and it's like, Amenadiel's like, I believe you, we believe you, we're here to help you. But the killer or whatever shows up and starts firing off shots. And obviously Amenadiel wants to walk over, because like he easily can, like he doesn't have to be afraid of bullets, but right, got to keep up appearances. But Harris was able to say like, yeah, there's cops everywhere. Amenadiel's looking at her, she's like, I know, I'm lying out my ass to figure out, like, you know. But luckily they were able to calm him down, because it's like, right, you've already committed one murder. Trying to kill cops is going to add more severity to it. So he comes out, drops a gun. Cops roll up. Michaela's literally down on the ground, shivering in fear, and it's still like, getting down on the ground. She's like, he's the bad guy. That's the thing of like, she's literally down, shivering. Like, that should be key sign of like, hey, like. But it's like, because they were told reports of like Michaela's the suspect, but then Amenadiel comes out and is like, whoa, that's not, he's the perpetrator. But Reiben shows up and points a gun that way, and Amenadiel steps in the way and is like, no, I'm not going to get out of your way. Because he knew he couldn't do anything to Amenadiel. If this was any other point in time, if there were not as many people around, he would have done something. But it's because so many witnesses around, like no one was going to sweep that under the rug. There was too many people around for him to do something. So it's like, fine, bring them both in. And he can't even go with like, we're two cops on the scene to tell you what's what, and you're still not listening to us. I want to bring Michaela in, but at the very least, it's better than her dying. But for him, it's just like, no, she was too close to dying. An innocent woman was going to die. It's like, it's not just unfair, it's unjust. You know, it's like, for him, it's like, I don't get how you can do this every day. He's like, I don't think I can. But for Harris, it's so important to do this. Because once again, she could have taken that cushy job in the Palisades or whatever, but she decided to stay here because this is where she can do the most good. Yes, it's just as a beat cop, but it is like, it's a process. It's not going to get all fixed at once. If you can take one step in a time in the right direction and protecting people in her community and everything like that, that's kind of what matters. That's what makes it all worth it, is being able to, you know, because it's like, but it's like, if we weren't there, but Harris is like, we were there, and that's what mattered. We were able to save her life, and that's what matters. Yes, things could have gone wrong, but it didn't, because we were there. That's why we do what we do for moments like that, to be there to intervene so things don't turn out ugly, you know. So, and at the end, you see like Ella, Chloe, and even Dan kind of looking, because it's like, right, that situation. Because I think for a lot, especially Chloe and Dan, it's like, right, like all this has been going on, and we never really realized like how corrupt a lot of this stuff was. Even later on, Chloe's looking through, I think, Reiben's file or someone's file and think it's kind of like, right, realizing like what's going on, like a lot of the cover-ups. It's like, right, this was all happening in a department and I was none the wiser. Like, you know, it is that thing of like, you know, Harris kind of said it earlier. It's like Decker, she's a legacy. Oh, also there's another big difference between her. She's white, I'm not. So there's that conversation as well. But it's like, you know, I mean, I'm sure also for Ella, too, it's like she loves her job and everything, but even you, I'm sure she, like, not that she turns a blind eye, but it's like you aren't able to witness kind of like the smaller things that kind of happen throughout the job and stuff like that. So, but at the end, they were able to take Michaela back to her house with Kevin just to pick up some stuff and pick up that picture. It's just like, luckily she's alive, but, you know, it's sad that things kind of turned out like this, how bad things could have turned out if it wasn't for them, so... I thought that was a really nice progression in his story, and I'm curious to see the continuation of this, like his unwillingness, like you're right, in the face of adversity. That's the interesting thing about humans. We persevere. We find a way to keep going forward, and I think he's going to take that, you know, down that route with Harris. So that's an interesting development. Another angle to this episode is the Lucifer side of things. Obviously, like, things between him and Aurora aren't in a good place, so he's trying to ask Linda for advice about everything. And she's like, right, you need to listen to her feelings. And it's like, huh, Maze said the same thing. And it's like, and Linda's like, wait, Maze did? That's odd. And I love that being a bit, because later on, like, Lucifer's like, oh, I listened to Dr. Linda and Maze's advice. It's like, Maze and Linda said the same thing? That's odd. He's like, I know, huh? It's like, I love that this is just everyone's reaction to like, yep, that's kind of weird. That coming from Linda, sure, but Maze? Wow, that's unprecedented. But essentially, it's the whole conversation about, like, Lucifer can't make up for the past, or rather, in his case, the future. It's like, oh yeah, time travel, like, oh, it's so confusing. But he's like, what if I can? She's like, well, I mean, could you? Like, if you forced yourself, he's like, no, I don't mean time travel literally. I mean, metaphorically, you know, because obviously she's angry for, like, him missing so much of her life. So he, Chloe talks with, Aurora, like, she gets to stay in Trixie's room. It's like, right, T, it's like, yeah, you're big sis and everything, which I'm like, that's super cute. I like that we're having this conversation, because, like, obviously that is her big sister. But I love that. He's like, yeah, I can always count on her for the porn. And Chloe's like, what? She's like, just kidding. I was like, that's so weird. Don't do that. But it's like, for her, she talks about the fact that her and Chloe had that type of relationship. They kind of rib on each other a little bit. Well, at least they will. But Chloe's like, you shouldn't be too mad at Lucifer. The reason why he even thought you were the killer, going to kill him in the first place, was because of me. It's my fault. And she's like, based on, like, you know, what's going on, like, I can't have been that good of a mother. But she's like, no, you've done the best you could. You were an amazing mom. You know? So I thought, you know, it's not saying, like, how I turned out and everything. Like, he's the one I have issues with, not you. But she's just telling her, like, right, give him a chance. Like, you know me because you spent your entire life with me. You don't know Lucifer, so use this as an opportunity to get to know him. But the moment she shows up at the penthouse, Lucifer's like got a Christmas celebration going on. Got all these different presents, a teddy bear, tricycle or bicycle or whatever, trying to make up for all the gifts he didn't have for her. Then he took her for a ride in one of his cars, and she's speeding and swerving. And I love that they roll up on that lady and they're kind of winking to each other, and Lucifer gives her the devil eyes, like, I'm looking at you, I see you. And he turns back to her. It's like, what? She was like twice your age. I'm sorry, but she was twice your age. It was like, oh, that's super cute. You trying to be parental and stuff like that. But it turns out she knows how to drive this car so well for two things. One, she's like, oh, so that's how the car got the scratch. It's time travel stuff, because she's the one that ended up giving it to it, giving the car the scratch. But also, she knows how to drive because Chloe told her. Because I was like, right, I obviously wasn't there for you. And also, this car, I know how to handle it so well because it is mine in the future. It's like, oh. And it's just kind of cemented more and more for him. I'm like, right, I've missed out on so much. And he's like, right, you know what? I've been trying to handle things like, of course, like, your mom is going to be there, like, be the amazing mom that she is, and be there for a lot of those big moments and milestones. I should handle things, come from my perspective on things, you know, and show you how to, like, you know, do what I do best. And that's party! And he starts dancing, and she's just looking at him, and Maze comes over, and she's like, yeah, she's like, yay, hurrah type of vibe to it. It's like, yeah, no one can, don't party like a mortal, party like a celestial. And so doing the whole thing, and obviously Maze is like, I get it why you're mad at him. Like, I have had an absentee mom who abandoned me and my siblings, so she sucked. But at the very least, your dad is trying. At the end of the day, he's just a man. Like, they're not nearly as evolved as we are. So, but then he puts on a musical number, which I'm like, he's and offering like, I could give you anything that you want, baby. And she's just kind of standing there with her mouth like open, almost like she's like dumbfounded by the whole thing, doing her thing. And I love that even part where he kept putting the mic in front of her face to sing, and at one point Maze jumps in and just kind of like she's like later on she starts enjoying herself, because at first she's kind of stiff like Aurora is, but then she actually starts grooving a little bit. I love it. But for Aurora, it's like, it doesn't matter. It's like, you're trying to fix things. It doesn't change anything. What happened between us has already happened. You can try and fix it now that I'm here, but it's like, it doesn't change. The fact is, you abandoned me. You weren't there for me every step. You missed my first day of school, my first this, my first that. Like, you weren't there to teach me how to drive. You weren't even there to teach me how to fly. Like, you weren't there for like 20 years of my life. Nothing you do can fix that. And he's just like, well, what can I do then? You know, I can't use my mojo on you. And she's like, then just ask me. He's like, Aurora, what do you desire? And she's like, for you to leave me alone. I'm like, oh, that's so heartbreaking. Because she does see him trying, but it's just like, him trying is just a reminder of, right, it's a reminder of like, you're trying to make this up for me, because these moments you're trying to have with me, you're trying to rush through 20 years of you not being there for whatever reason, you know? But then later on, he comes to the penthouse and he hears her playing guitar, and they have a duet together. I thought was really sweet. So where things kind of stand between them now, this might be a step in the right direction, but there's still a lot of work to be done in their relationship. So I'm very interested to see where things kind of go from here when it comes in. I think in the end they're going to work things out, obviously. But not just because like, oh, you want things to have a happy ending, I hope they have a happy ending type of thing. It's not just that. It's also because despite everything, Lucifer was able to make amends with his dad. Like, him and his dad are in a much better place than they were before. So if there was hope for Lucifer and his dad, and they have a lot more history than Lucifer and his daughter, then I think that can kind of make up for things. I think, not make up for things, but I think there's a good chance of it all working out. It's not hopeless. I believe it will, you know? So, but yeah, that's really all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.